just before the financial crash. My boss came back just white as a sheet. You need to get your shit together.
Alan Winking is the founder and CEO of Syntegra Group.
From £50 million properties to projects into the thousands of units. When the proverbial hits the fan, you've always got to go and think, okay, well, that's happened, you execute. I almost thought it was a badge of honor. Ask for help.
Hey everyone, today's guest is a powerhouse in the property sector, wearing multiple hats across consulting, engineering, and development. Alan Winking is the founder and CEO of Syntegra Group, with deep expertise in sustainable building and energy efficiency. He also owns engineering consultancy, BSG, co-runs the Gravitas Property Group, and serves as a board advisor to PropTech startups. From net zero to post-COVID pivots, Alan has navigated multiple property cycles and built a business empire that spans hotels, retail, housing, and more. In today's episode, we dive into managing 5 ventures, dealing with conflict and chaos, and how to rebuild momentum after personal and professional turbulence. Alan, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
Alan, what led you to launch Syntegra Group?
So I've always been in property, mainly on the consultancy side and the project management side. But at that time, first starting out, I wanted to actually be the property developer. So working through consultancies, client side project managers, contractor side. And just before the financial crash, as we all know, I finally ended up being the actual developer, working for a super prime developer in the West End boutique, dealing with properties, big numbers. We started to hear rumours of something happening in the sort of city. My boss came back from an event in the city with his advisors, and he was just white as a sheet. And he pulled us all into a room and he said, guys, you need to get your shit together. And I thought, that's not quite right. Something's not quite right. And I thought, okay, well, I need to do something. What should I do? On the train home, I decided actually I'll take out unemployment insurance and I'll reinvigorate Syntegra Consulting, which I had dormant, another business idea, and start something. And I thought, okay, if it's going to go bad, property's going to get repossessed. And I thought, okay, well, let's set something up to do with home information packs, EPCs, because you needed them to market properties to sell. So that's how it started out. So I ran that and it started to get some traction. The market turned, I got made redundant, and I had that to fall into and to reinvest into. For the first couple of years, didn't take out any money and just reinvested back into the business, and then focused on digital marketing on that side and the turbulence and the policy shifts around that side.
Talk to me, what does Syntegra do today that most people don't understand also?
So roll on, I guess, 17 years now. So we fundamentally mitigate planning and construction risk. Within a whole group, it's 2 companies, Syntegra Consulting and Building Services Group. So I would say roughly 55% is planning stage. So we assist developers from private through to large corporates undertake their various ancillary reports alongside their architects and planning consultants. So things like daylight modeling, sustainability, rights of light, ecology services, acoustics, quality. When I first started out, architects would be writing statements. But as things evolved, everything has become a lot more front loaded, and you need more qualifications and certifications to do each and every one of these reports. There's a whole raft of different reports we do now. It can be in some projects up to about 20 different reports that we do for planning stage, and they're across different disciplines. And the remaining percentage, we probably do about 30% design stage, and then the remainder is post-occupancy in terms of audits, condition surveys, both on the engineering side and the energy efficiency side.
And what kind of big clients you've worked in so far with Syntegra?
We've worked on properties ranging from super prime 40, 50 million pound properties through to large regeneration projects into the thousands of units. Worked on the Shard. At Building Services Group, we did Jumeirah Carlton Tower, which is a £100 million refurbishment hotel. We've worked with the well-known hotel brands as IHG Hotels, brand standards, Quintia Hotels, one of ours. Done a number of projects overseas via the engineering company Building Services Group. Project at factories in Egypt, hotels in Finland, Jersey. It's a whole range. We have an ecosystem with the group. There's a number of opportunities that come through. And one of the negatives of running the business is you don't get to see the detail and all the projects and go into site, actually being able to meet all the clients. That's one of the sort of the small negatives.
I'm sure you're not grumbling on that one as long as projects come in.
That's right.
There are quite a notable number of landmarks and buildings that you mentioned out there. Talk to me, for someone listening in, how do you go about marketing this? How do you get new clients and customers in?
Very early on, I made a conscious decision of focusing on digital marketing. So our sector is quite conservative. First of all, learned it myself because That's the budget I had. And then gradually over time, built a team and it chopped and changed over the past, tried different things in terms of technologies and plugins to different platforms. And some of them last and some of them drop off and you just got to rebuild it. So that's one of the pillars of our business is producing content. So we have a lot of content on our websites and we do invest quite a bit in terms of our digital marketing to produce inbound traffic because particularly on the planning side, planning is very time sensitive. So if, for example, a submission has been submitted and there are a number of reports that are missing, you need them urgently. So very often happens is an architect or developer is quickly scrambling around trying to find an acoustics report to do a survey very, very quickly. Otherwise, the date stamp on their planning application is going to go invalidated. And that's why we get a lot of inquiries that are very quick, fast paced, and we have to turn those quotes very, very quickly around. So we've got a back end office that simply coordinates, compiles, and produces the quotations that go out the door. So we need to have an effective, efficient system around that.
Got it. Digital marketing, what's kind of working right now in 2025 and what will work in 2026? This tech AI coming in, there's everything else coming in into every sector and space of every industry.
Well, that's the challenge because as time has also unfolded, more and more people have obviously gone into the digital marketing route, and then you see your arguably first mover advantage then becoming a lot more expensive. And so you've got to keep on refining and finding the niches. And we're in an industry where there's lots of policy changes in terms of net zero or new terminologies. So we're always looking for the new terminologies that might baffle a client, and in which case they then try and search for it online. And if we are develop that quickness to market and policy and produce articles around it, that's how we regain some of our quickness to market.
Got it. And looking at all those projects that you mentioned, what's your proudest project to date?
If it was more sector specific, the first one that springs to mind was Jumeirah Carlton Mayfair. That was a project that when we acquired Building Services Group, it was just about to get going on site. And so it was a very tricky time to buy a business when you get such a major project, but successfully completed, looks fantastic. And in the end was very happy. And it's quite an iconic building. There's other ones in terms of like the Shard, obviously. There are other ones under wrap.
What was so good about Shard? It's under NDA.
Everyone knows what the Shard was. So we did the BREEAM refurbishment on a couple of the floors there for a particularly fit out contractor.
Everyone knows Shard, yes. Now talk to me, you mentioned about when the shit hits the fan, how and your team are under pressure. How do you turn up? How do you lead the teams?
Well, this is a Monday morning. We're having this interview on a Monday morning. There's already a few issues that I need to sort of sort out. There's also some interesting opportunities. So when the proverbial hits the fan, you've always got to go and think, okay, well, that's happened, right? What are the options? Who do you quickly need to sort of tell and inform? And then what are the actions you need to do and when do you need to make it by? And then you need to then execute. That's very important. Then disseminate that information, whether it's through you or through other members of the team, because then you need to then deliver that message in a certain way. So sometimes conveying it directly from yourself as the leader, depending on what the issue is, can be overkill. And it's down to yourself as the leader to come up with the solutions.
Got it. And speaking of being a leader, you have 5 companies. How do you juggle all these 5 companies? Give us the insights behind the scene.
It can be challenging, but you need to just compartmentalize your time and your days very precisely, I guess. There's always going to be some sort of overlap, but you need to be disciplined at that. You need to look after yourself, try and sleep well. I'm trying to sort of make a lot of effort around sleep. I'm getting older, sleeping well, eat well, keep your mind clear, and try to keep your stress levels down, to be honest. But it's very important to compartmentalize and value your own time. I'm trying to value my time a lot more.
Got it. What kind of advice you would give found business owners about to start off in a similar journey, right? When it comes to these 3 core areas, your physical, mental, personal, and business side of it?
I would first and foremost say, eat well, sleep well, and talk to people. The whole ethos around work hard, play hard, I think it's a bit of a myth, to be honest. That's what I tried to do. And I almost thought it was a badge of honor in the early days of, I'll do it myself. I don't need any help. But looking back, I could have, and I was offered help a lot at certain times. And just to ask for help, and not in terms of more business help. There's a lot of people within your network that have significant amount of knowledge and expertise. And if they can give you that one nugget that will save you 3 months, 6 months, or just the intro, why not? So don't be too egotistical.
Coming back to the 5 companies that you have, which one do you consider your kind of gold medal number 1 winner right now?
It has to be Syntegra. That's part of me, is what I started. That's kind of what I'm known for, and that's what's opened a lot of the opportunities. So I would say it's that one. And it's not to also water down the other ones, because there are some
Sure.
fantastic startups we're getting involved with.
Okay. And let's move on to your team, right? How do you kind of coach or train your team when there's ambiguity? And how do you get them to make those decisions?
So trying to empower them is important. Understand, helping them come up with the options. They're the ones that are operating in the trenches, working on the project, leading the project. So it's important to try and ease out the options through them and get them to present the solutions rather than pointing it out, unless it's absolutely D-Day critical. Then you've got to take action, and then you've got to say, no, this needs to be done. Just grab it. That is absolute D-Day.
Understood. How does the owner in multiple businesses actually prevent D-Day decision? How do they prevent that from happening?
You need to put this control systems in place, put your QA systems in place, making sure you're, to a degree, the reporting line always there without them being alerted. You've been alerted to it earlier on.
Got it. Okay. So have the standard Q&A and check some processes out there. Let's move on to net zero. What's your take on the future of net zero mandates now?
It should be an interesting next few years. I think whether policies change substantially, there's so much groundwork that has already been done in terms of corporates, also in terms of building regulations already, in order for buildings, for example, to be more energy efficient. The more blue chip clients, they've set out their net zero agendas already in the public domain. You've got the funders have provided investment into these businesses, into these institutions. So it won't bode well for obviously organisation to then completely can it, so to speak. But obviously with the current president in the office at the moment, that's stalled investments overseas and markets are there. But in terms of the UK, it's relatively stable as it is. But
Right.
I would say the next potential change of government, whoever that will be, there's some very strong views on net zero, which might change things.
And any guess into how that changes your business model, your approach to getting clients, working with clients?
That's an interesting point, because one of our strongest USPs is around the net zero sustainable buildings. So quite diversified in terms of sectors and services since we started out. We've seen quite a shift this current year into more public sector projects coming live. Public sector projects, obviously big investments, infrastructure, with certain targets to sort of meet as well. So as policies shift, we would need to shift as a business as well. But at this moment in time, I can't see too much of a shift over the next sort of 3 years in terms of net zero targets.
Okay, interesting. Okay, another 3 years. I'll get you back in another 3 years and we'll talk about that. Oh, what's your take on PropTech right now?
Well, there's a lot of noise and lots of startups around the PropTech and AI sector. So I would say there is a market for it. It's something to be aware of. And as running various sort of consultancies, any tool or platform or software that can make the business more agile, more efficient and more productive.
What role does board advisory roles play in your strategy?
Well, it's something that I've wanted to do for some time. I've been on the receiving end of advisory to share roles as well, and see the great value in that. It's always good to have a second pair of eyes, and particularly with people who aren't day-to-day running the business, operating different angles, different levels of experience. There is value to be had. So I quite enjoy helping businesses, identifying opportunities, identifying potential strategic partnership.
And if someone wants to work with you, how do they go about getting into you on your radar?
Okay, my website is alanwinking.com.
Right.
All my details are there.
Got it. Okay, that's easy. One book that you recommend to someone listening in. A book that changed the way you lead, changed your life.
There's a book I've been carrying around in my bag for quite some time, actually, and I'm dying to read it. It's called Split the Difference.
By the FBI negotiator, right?
That's right, yes. And I'm just finding the complete time just to sort of read it back to back, done in one go.
Got it. And in terms of your gold medal business, Syntegra, where do you see that in 10 years' time?
Wow. Hopefully we'll be still around and it'll be a hell of a lot bigger.
Hell of a lot bigger. Okay, fantastic. Alan, great having you on the pod today. That's a wrap. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much.